Hi everyone, welcome to my second ever podcast. At time of recording this, I haven't even released my first podcast, and I am pleased to say that today I am joined by one of the first people that I actually told about this crazy idea that happened to coincide with the rapid deployment, launch and snowballing of his one-man show. The one-man show is a horrible title for it. It is something we have discussed already at length, and I think that at some point we might place a better one. But I am delighted to introduce to my second ever podcast, Blake.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks for having me.
I guess it depends when someone's listening to it,
Well,
right?
It does. But I'm going to go with what we've got now, which is good evening.
One-man show.
Yes.
Is a terrible description
I don't
because
like it.
it really but it is a one-man show.
I think the whole notion of me, an occasionally painfully shy, introverted, quiet, mild-mannered photographer, having something that's called a one-man show is preposterous. I can't quite get my head around it. So I just called it going on a stage and talking about things. But I think one-man show is a better phrase, but I'm not sure it fits.
Yeah, we'll work it out. I think we'll get there eventually.
We'll right.
Maybe some feedback from the people might give it a more appropriate title.
They always know. The people always know.
You said it just now, and I guess, is this the first thing you've talked about, you talking about your show? You've done any press yet?
Yes, no press.
Because I'm still faking the press bit, right? I've just got the microphones.
No press. This is the first time we've decompressed and chatted about the one-man show.
Okay, well, I was there. I bought one of the early tickets. I was there out of curiosity. I think a lot of people were there out of curiosity.
Same.
Yeah, quite. It was... I booked it straight away because I like you, and therefore I booked it without really thinking about it. And then when I thought about what you were actually going to be doing, and I spoke to you a couple of times in the run-up to it, and I thought this is quite a thing. Like I'm quite nervous for you.
My nerves were contagious,
and the place was full. The guys at JW3, by their own reckoning, he's the owner, he's CEO of JW3. Stands up and says, no one ever, doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter how many Walk of Fame stars you have, you get an hour here. Welcome to Blake's 2-hour show. I mean, how did that happen? We're going to try very hard to not talk about the content of the show. So I'm trying to pick around it so we can get a picture of what's there.
So the truth is, I wasn't given any kind of time guide or cut-off, clearly. And I was going into it, and very nervous at the beginning. And somehow things started flowing, and it was almost like a bit of an out-of-body experience. And obviously it was me, and it was very authentically me, but things just took over. Things just happened. I don't know. Things felt comfortable after a while. And then I looked up at the clock, and there'd been 1 hour, 40 minutes had gone of me continuously telling stories of things from over the years. And yeah, I was on stage for 2 hours, which is mad.
Did it run for 2 hours when you'd practiced it?
What's the best answer to give you?
7.5 was my first version.
I didn't practice it. And I didn't practice it very, very intentionally. I didn't practice it because, as you know from being there, a lot of the stories that were told are very, very personal.
Yeah.
Some of them are extremely difficult for me to tell. And some of them I have friends or family who've known me for years who said to me afterwards, I had no idea that had happened to you, or I had no idea that you'd been through this or that. So I didn't want to rehearse. I didn't want to practice. I had to just go back into that moment and tell those stories.
So how do you now prepare for a second one that after you've now practiced? You've done a full dress rehearsal.
I've done one. So there's a few months till the
What about the one you did at the
So
didn't you do one at the synagogue?
There was a much smaller one before JW3. There was a much smaller one. And that was similar content. But it felt very different.
How long did it last?
An hour and 10, an hour and 20
minutes. Oh, so it already had legs.
It had legs.
It wasn't like 20 minutes rolled into 2 hours.
And it was, again, it was a really emotional evening, actually. I found out an hour before I was leaving the house to go to that talk, I found out that my grandmother had passed away. And there was a bit of a section in the one-man show.
Yeah.
about how photography makes things live on, right? About how our role is kind of capturing things and making them live forever, right? So it was difficult. It was a really tough evening.
It's funny you say that. Jason Rabbo, who shoots videos, dug out a bar mitzvah video of his from the other day and had a load of clips up of it. And he was sitting there watching it going, no one who's in this video is with us anymore. And for the time, that was the only memories they had of them, with these sporadic function snippets on VHS from... and that was definitely something during your talk that became quite like, whoa, was the amount of... Oh, I called it a talk then.
Yeah, you did.
All right, 2 titles so far. One-man show, talk. Let's see how many we can pull out at the end. Maybe in the edit we'll put a ding counter at the bottom of how many things we call it.
In the feedback, somebody described it as a tour de force. We can use that one. That's one of my favourite pieces of feedback. One said this was a tour de force and it was captivating and compelling and I could have listened for days longer and I wouldn't have moved. And then I had another piece of feedback was like, wow, he drinks a lot of water on stage. I mean, those are my 2 favourites.
Hydrate. Yeah, very good. So, we're not going to touch on the content specifically, but for those that don't know, or perhaps I should have done this at the beginning, I know Blake primarily from our event world, ultimately. Although we were discussing just before, I definitely went on tour with your wife, which apparently I didn't. But that's fine.
It's okay.
And therefore, I guess, perhaps as a lot of people do that work in industries with people, I had I wouldn't say a one-dimensional view of you, because I think we're friendlier than people that just work together. But certainly, I don't think I realised what went into ultimately the scenario that meant that we could meet each other while you were working at events in northwest London.
Yeah.
And there is tons of it.
There's a lot.
I mean, so much.
I think everyone's got a level of hidden depth, right? And when you were saying what you were saying just now, like, we only know what we know about the people who we know, right? So there's always so much stuff in the past or things that people don't just go around talking about every day. You know, you don't carry all of those experiences with you and talk about them. Or certainly I don't very, very, very often.
See, that's funny because I talk to you. Like when we talk, it's not a 5-minute conversation.
No, we have a chat.
So that was what I wasn't shocked that you could talk for 2 hours, even though I appreciate that your public persona is a bit more reserved, perhaps, than being a chatterbox. But with the stuff that you were dealing with from early on, when you talk about working in Israel, that's not a secret, right? No, I'm not giving away any of the... But it's a serious story. Like there's a whole heap of stuff that is, you know what they say, difficulty and toughness is creates character and all that type of stuff.
It's true.
You did the proper struggle.
It's been a real struggle. I think it's interesting because in this world of events that we met in and where our paths collided, right? People come into it in a few different ways, and sometimes you have people who were, great graphic designers who then went into doing, event design and invitations, for example. You have people who were, musicians in a rock band who go into... So everyone's got their own kind of route in, right? So I find that often in photography, sometimes people approach from other industries, but it's often their kind of first thing in photography is they start shooting events or private events, whether that be weddings, parties, bar mitzvahs, whatever. And for me, it was this other path round where I'd already... done photography for years and years and years professionally, and I'd already had a load of crazy experiences and done, 1,000 commissioned photography jobs here, there, and everywhere before going anywhere near anybody's special moment. But a lot of that journey, you're right, it was tough, really tough, and actually there's a lot that I didn't even touch on in the talk, one-man show, tour de force, even with ding, 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 ding. There's a lot that I didn't touch on there, and it's times of real struggle, struggle. And times when I thought maybe I should have just gone on to a graduate course and do something
that's
sensible,
boring, right?
Get a real job, right?
Do you remember when we first met?
Yeah.
Do you actually?
Yeah.
Where were we?
In my office.
Oh, yeah, okay. So that day, I really didn't think you'd know that.
Number 5 Elstree Way.
Yeah.
Not there anymore.
Very impressive. You had walls not too dissimilar to the back of the studio,
Very
I
similar.
think. Yeah. I remember leaving that meeting I owned Totem at the time with Brett, and we'd just been at a job. I wasn't there, you were there, and we had some swagger, confidence, whatever. We'd done a lot of work in a lot of cool places. Yeah.
Not you and I.
No.
I have no swagger.
No, sorry.
Okay,
and I'd never been backwards in coming forwards in saying to any photographer or videographer, hey, I'm doing you a favour, but if you want to give me some pictures, then I'll probably use them possibly somewhere, Yeah. And you were like, hi, I'm a professional photographer. That's literally what I do. So no. And by all means, if you'd like to buy this, and it was the first time that I'd been told no in that manner, and I walked away and went, okay, I get it. I understand. Like, I don't want to understand, and I'm annoyed that I haven't left with that stuff, but I get it. And then having listened to your one-man show, it justifies that response so much more.
Yeah.
And I guess that was part of mine is I'd worked with a lot of professional event photographers. Either they'd started in it or their path had taken them to, I don't know, you didn't really, yeah, you did, it's not fair, it's doing you an injustice, but you didn't really work your way up the private photography ladder. You sort of appeared and immediately you were already doing big jobs with big people. Maybe it was through other affiliations. I seem to remember you talking about that
it felt like I did. I mean, it certainly felt like, but then also like, this ladder.
Yeah.
Not sure I believe in the ladder, So it's
well, as someone that started climbing it from 15, setting up discos from the back of my mum's car in village halls for 45 quid. Trust me, it's there.
There's a financial ladder.
Oh yeah, but the work was no better. I remember specifically Darren Levy, shouts out, Mobsters, still certainly the godfather of all present DJs in the local Northwest London event scene, gave me very kindly a job, which was for a Jewish youth working Valentine's disco at Northwood Village Hall, and I think Laurie was with me, and Wayne Godfrey, who doesn't do this anymore. Maybe Gavin too. Either way, we were all like new DJs on the scene, and we turned up at this job with all the kit, and it was terrible. And we had to set it all up, and we didn't get paid for that job at all. And it was 25 kids in a proper 70s village hall, and it was awful. But I loved it. But it was awful. But it was definitely starting at there isn't much lower in terms of. I'm not being disparaging of it, but as kids' school disco, in terms of what I do now, it's kind of a different deal. But you didn't do them. You may have done them elsewhere through Journo and that stuff, but you went straight in.
In terms of private events, kind of,
yeah.
The reason I said I don't believe in a ladder is obviously there's...
There's a very easy to say when you start at the top of it.
Tour de force, ding. No, because, sometimes for me, it's and I think I mentioned this, and you know this about me, is that you can be surrounded by the most incredible production and glitz and glamour and all the trimmings of an event, right? But actually, I'm looking for connection. So to me, those things are almost a bit less important in that what I'm looking for is to portray feeling. So that's why, like, in terms of that ladder, I can really enjoy myself and capture really emotional moments that I'm in love with at a much smaller scale event rather than a bigger, that kind of thing. That's all.
Yeah.
But no, in terms of, I didn't do those.
Yeah.
But I think in previous photographic incarnations and things that I've done in the past, there was a lot of climbing to be done.
Yeah. Literally, according to your talk, in some of those instances.
And being treated terribly, and really having to struggle in order to be able to do photography.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to do. So, there was a real struggle. But you're right, in terms of private events, that either happened very quickly or it didn't really happen at all. And I think there are a few people who have been in this North London world of events in which we find ourselves who, they use the phrase like you kind of appeared. I agree.
Good appearance. And sustained. It's not like it was a flash in the pan thing. You're here, right?
I'm here.
We actually, you know this, I'm telling the people. Hi, people. Mum,
people.
anyone else? Don't know.
My mum.
Hi, Blake's family. That's it.
Hi, the mums.
Either way, some point in the future when this is a huge thing, then everyone will look back on this and be like, "Oh yeah, Blake was
I
there."
love the early ones.
Yeah. Wow, what was I saying to you?
You were saying that you were going to tell the people something that I know.
Yes. We put you forward to a client today, and if I'm honest, I haven't looked at your sales document brochure
Booklet.
for some time. It's super cool.
Do you like it?
I mean, we were sitting a bit like, okay, when are we getting to the thing? But you realise by the time you get to the thing, you've been on this whole journey of a lot of killer photos.
Yeah,
There's some big ones in there.
I think, look, I'm lucky. Photographers are like people who create content are lucky in that that's what they do, and they've got plenty of it to show, and it's really all about that. So obviously somebody should meet you and get a feel for you, and you see if you get on. But like, I'm lucky in that there is that much content, and if it's all about the pictures, put them in there. Glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. I hope it's the thing. Then we get to work together again. Hooray! Okay, so put the camera down for a sec.
Yeah.
And one of the other big takeaways from human. Right? It's correct. We don't need to create anything else. It's just called human.
Yeah.
One of the big takeaways from that was family. And anyone that knows you are a sensitive old soul at best, prone to
emotional wreck at work.
Yes. Prone to certainly. You don't hide it. You don't hide joy. Certainly not. But your family are the epicenter of all of that for you.
100%.
Have you got the luckiest kids in the world in terms of having a photographic record of their growing up?
So what I would say is...
Because all I ever see is cover stories of your kids.
There's not enough of them. As in, not kids. I mean, there's never enough kids, right? But there's not enough pictures of the kids.
You need a big house, mate.
It's an issue. Might move in here.
Just get the office, turn that into a couple of bedrooms, and then it's
space
perfect.
behind.
No problem.
Don't want to give away the
illusion. This is all proper.
There's not enough pictures of them. I think, look, we shoot a lot with our phones, as everyone does.
Yeah.
My issue is that if they are sitting somewhere doing something cute in an area that's very unphotogenic, or in front of just a mess in the corner, or they're in a dark corner and there's a toilet door behind, whatever it might be, is that I'm really not that bothered to take a picture. So I will, and I'll take a picture with my phone, almost putting in less effort than I should do, because I know whatever I do photographically, it's not going to be amazing. Yeah, look, there's a memory. It's gone back in the pocket,
good, got it.
But in terms of when I really take time with them, or when we're away and I've just got a bit more time.
When the real camera comes out.
Yeah.
Is that the difference? Is the difference like you care about that shot if the real camera's with you?
To an extent, but then a couple of years ago we went away and I had the phone with me, and I only had the phone a couple of years ago, last year, sorry, and I only had my phone, and there's some beautiful pictures of them, and some that I'm looking at them. I'm quite surprised that they were.
How good? What iPhone are you dealing with these days?
One.
So
I don't have the super wide lens.
Right, okay.
I've got portrait.
Nonetheless, how good is it photographically?
It's great in controlled conditions.
As in this lighting, easy peasy, everything's great.
Not movement.
Yeah.
So it's also with portrait mode, there's a lag as well. So it struggles with movement. I often wonder whether I could shoot an event with like a new iPhone. I don't think I could. Is the truth of it.
Do you really?
Yeah, I think obviously.
Have you used it? Have you used the new one? Because I'm.
They're great.
Shocked by it often.
You know, I'd probably be better than the average iPhone user. They struggle, and actually a lot of what I do is about light.
We should throw the challenge out there. Like, if anyone wants Blake to shoot your whole function with an iPhone, no delivery, just hand your phone back at the end of the night.
Imagine.
Yeah, well, someone will do it.
I need to edit them. Everything's
no, straight back. Straight back. I reckon you need to practice for some time with those phones.
I do this thing at some events, and definitely like certain celebrity events, whereby somebody will be like, "Excuse me, do you mind just taking a picture with the phone?" And like, I'll always say yes, obviously, unless like I'm running. So, like, I'll say yes because it's polite to. So what I normally do. Nowadays, I'll obviously take a picture of them. I'll also take a selfie without telling them, and then just give them their phone back. And I think a couple of times in the past I've done it and maybe only taken the selfie. I'm not sure. But I had a charity dinner that I shot with Mark Francis Vandelli from Made in Chelsea. which I don't really watch, but what a character he is.
Yeah.
And I met him one year, and he asked me to take a picture. I literally just took a selfie and gave him his phone back. He was in hysterics laughing. I then took the picture afterwards. And then the next year I saw him at the same event, and he showed me the...
That's a good one, actually. That's a whole subject to talk about that is not really covered in your...
Phones.
No, well, phones being one, but celebs we've met at these crazy events we do.
Yes.
Because there are some people like that, and I was thinking, as you said that, when we had Rylan, that guy.
What a character!
Good, what a guy, right?
He's
But
great.
you'd never have encountered him I often say to people, one of the luckiest things about working in the industry that we do is we get an unbelievable level of access to, like, you can walk around any 5-star hotel in London, the guts of, pretty much unobstructed.
Yeah.
But it's because they want you there, not sneaking around.
Yeah.
But that's an amazing thing, especially when you think, like, when you walk through the back of the Savoy and those sorts of things, you think, wow, this is actually a special place to be.
Totally.
Or the guts of the Dorchester when you're down under and under.
It's fascinating.
The celebs are the same,
we're
right?
there the whole time, but it's other people find it fascinating.
What was that show? They did a documentary on...
What, behind the scenes at a hotel?
yeah, was it on the Savoy?
There was one of Claridge's, there was one of the Mandarin Oriental.
But people watched with, and I was like,
Yeah.
it's literally like watching me at work. I don't need to watch this.
all the human stories of people who work there, and I found those things fascinating.
Yeah, I
as
do.
well.
I do like a good behind the
Totally.
scenes.
But we're lucky. You're right. We do. I think in many different roles and events, you're very fortunate to have access to those people and those things. I think specifically in photography, and I don't know quite exactly how or why, or whether it's because people have a vested interest in the result that they want you to give to them. But I'm thrust into situations that I can barely believe. And even from the days before I was doing private events, you'd look around and just think, like, this is mad. I'm here because I'm carrying this camera in my hand because somebody wants me to achieve X, Y, or Z. But wow, like, how am I here? I don't belong here. Whether that's like the Cabinet Room of Downing Street or the Royal Box at the Royal Albert Hall, just mad places that you're just how.
I think that self-deprecation is a common function of successful people, because I think once you say, "I'm meant to be here, I deserve this," then the hunger's removed of chasing further. You get comfortable, right?
Potentially. But then, yeah, look, you might be right.
Yeah.
But to say you're meant to be somewhere, these are places that very few people, whatever their job, whatever their life experience, very few people get to go. And it's mad. We did a party not that long ago at the Tower of London, and I was in the Tower of London, and I was there as they ushered out all of the paying guests. And there was this period of about 20 minutes before any of the events started setting up, where I was just walking around completely by myself.
You and the Crown Jewels.
That's it.
I mean, would have been brilliant.
combination.
And it would have had the best news coverage. You could have done it for them and then just emailed the photos in.
100% with a
Amazing, amazing. So on the event world, you've travelled the globe. Safe to say.
Yeah.
In terms of the stuff you see abroad, the parties I've done abroad they feel different, they look different, even if they've got all of the same pieces. From a photographic perspective, I know you talk about one particular one, which we won't even mention the place of in Human. That story. I mean,
Should I have told it? I probably should have told
it was. I was sitting there going, "Oh my god, I was there! I was there when that happened. I remember him coming into the office and talking about it." No, it was brilliant.
Okay, good.
I mean, the whole. If you get nothing else from that, at the end of your next one, that needs clipping and putting somewhere because that is sensational stuff. Whew. Assuming that we're all a bit done with the UK stuff, we've all been to lots of them, and everyone can say, like we just said, "Oh, we've been to this 5-star hotel, that 5-star hotel." Where's the coolest place you've been that isn't here?
It isn't in the UK.
For an event, I mean.
That's a great question. I had wasn't an event, but it was a portrait commission in Costa Rica this time last year.
Proper photographer.
That was awesome.
What, following someone, or
It was.
can't talk about it?
No. Well, I can't say who.
Yeah.
But it was essentially to go and spend a few days doing shots of a certain resort.
Yeah.
And a few small portrait shoots with
VIPs and VVIPs, right?
Which was incredible, and that was on a private resort on a private peninsula called Papagayo, which is probably the most beautiful place I've ever been. And it's to get onto the peninsula is huge security, and then there's 3 resorts on this peninsula. Each of them have their own security. So it's the people who take a villa there for the summer and just go jogging around, like as in the most famous people in the world.
Yeah.
That was pretty special because it's somewhere that I don't think I would be going.
That's not
with my
normal
own family.
access. You don't get there.
No,
that's not sliding in.
Incredible place. Incredible place.
What do you do with your photos?
The ones I shoot for clients or my own?
Well, your own. Like one of the things that I think is changing. We had this discussion a while ago. In fact, when you were remodeling your house, we talked about the integration of art into the houses. What do you do with them? How do you get your output for your family must be certainly more than normal people, even if by your reckoning you haven't got enough.
Yeah, I would say so.
What do you do with it all? Where do you put it?
Not enough is the answer.
Yeah.
So we've got a couple of screens and digital photo type displays at home. I've also got a few shelves with like very mismatched frames and I change them now and again. So let's say there's like 30 shots on there. And apart from that, everything's just meticulously stored and logged for now.
For some point in the future when maybe it becomes something.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's people also always ask me whether my own home is full of like the pictures that you've taken all over the walls. You've got your own shots everywhere, and it's like, well, actually, there's so many other things in the world that I prefer to have on the walls of my home than photos I've taken. Even if they're of my kids. Now, I love my kids, and we've got pictures of them up.
But you live with them.
Yeah, I live with them. I can see them. They're there, exactly. So I think for me also, and I don't know whether it's the way I like to be or whether actually the world that we inhabit professionally has any bearing on this, but in my house, we've got lots of plain walls. Yeah. And I like the calm of it, and I like the peace of the head, and then the peace in my head, and to have that headspace, right? So I don't want to pack the wall. It could also be because my mum's house, God bless you, Mum, my mum's house has things everywhere.
Every floor ceiling.
Things. So I've kind of gone the other way a little bit.
My mum used to have does she still? She has the remnants of, but when I was growing up, had a special table in our hall that was full of, I'd call them knickknacks, but they were like posh knickknacks. Okay. Like, I don't think they were really posh, but they looked like vintage perfume bottles and little silver frames. And there was this entire
small China figurines.
Lots of and those little figures. Yes. Potpourri, obviously. Maybe that's a standard thing then.
A bell? Did she have a bell?
Yeah, we did have a bell. What's the bell about? We did have a bell,
like gold, like little bell.
Little gold, but and we also had a little crystal bell. I mean,
of course,
but not crystal. I mean glass. I mean,
glass bell.
Yeah, but wouldn't have worked thinking about it. I mean, it was a decorative bell. How ridiculous. Okay, so there's stuff left at Human? You can still get tickets for Human?
There are still tickets available.
There are.
It's about 2/3 sold.
Oh, so nearly done.
So we're 4 months away from it. So I'm sure it's going to be another.
It's a big run up by comparison.
It's a big run up, and actually, it would have been nice in many ways to do another one soon.
Got it out of the way.
Yeah, but at the same time, as I said to you before, I can't do that very often. It's emotionally exhausting. It's me just being really raw and honest and
I'm wary of blowing smoke up your ass because I responded very positively to Human.
We did.
Not just publicly, as in when I've been talking about it to people. And a few times had the reaction of like, all right, chill out. All right, I get it. I asked you before, and I was going to say to you, what is... How do you respond if someone says, well, it's a bit overindulgent, isn't it? Chill out, mate. Like, really? What are you doing? You're doing a talk about yourself for 2 hours? What's the behind that?
I'll tell you what's behind that. Firstly, it's really weird. Yeah. It is. It really is. And actually, when anyone says, how was it and how did it go? Like the only word that I can really say is like surreal. It's just been a bit surreal.
Keep going.
So the truth is, it's been a bit strange, and how it came about was that I was asked to talk for a smaller group by somebody I deeply, deeply respect, and I said no. Time and time and time and time again. And I kept saying no, and I kept then, after a kind of hard no, we then went to a soft no, which was a kind of, okay, well, I don't know if I because a couple of things went through my mind. The first one is that, yeah, it could be seen to be self-indulgent, and actually, what do I have to say that's of interest to anybody else? You know, like I've taken this role for the last decade where I'm hiding behind a camera. I'm relatively quiet, I suppose. And what have I got to say? I've got imposter syndrome. You know, I didn't study photography. I wake up in the morning and think, A, can I take a photograph?
Well,
B,
you did
do I have
study
any stories?
photography.
Did I?
Well, what? I mean, the stories I heard, you've been doing photography for an awful 10,000 hours makes you an expert, right?
Right. Self-taught. But
yeah,
but
10,000 hours
I have
in
no certificate on the wall that says I can do photography.
I don't think you need one, do you?
But there's this like imposter syndrome, right? So, you know, do I have any stories that are actually of interest to anyone else? Like, no, I'm still, 16 in my own head. Or do I, so that was the first thing that I said no loads of times until I was at this guy's house and he got his calendar out and was like, right, we're
proper cornered you.
So
it's like me getting you in here.
Literally. You promised dinner.
Yeah.
So he got his calendar out and I had to put it in. So firstly, he was very reluctant. That's the first thing. And he seemed sure that I had a story to tell. And he didn't quite know what the story was, but he thought that I had a story to tell. So 5 days before that was going to happen, I was about to cancel and realised that you can't, on a personal level, I couldn't do that to somebody who I respect that much and let them down. So I thought, look, even if I get on stage and it's hideous, I have to do this for him. And, it's kind of just gone a bit organically from there. And it still seems very weird. There's things I said to you before that I don't talk about often and that close friends of mine have no idea I've done or been through or suffered from or whatever. And yes, it's strange. Going on stage and letting that all out to a room full of people is really strange.
What other stage stuff do you do? Because your wife obviously is quite happy to be on stage. I never had that perception of you. No. At no point did I ever think, certainly not one man show. How do you get, now you've done that, is it banked? Is it like, okay, now I can get up and talk to people? Because obviously you did youth work. I find that in what I do, youth work has played a massive part in me being able to talk to groups of people because you just have to, right? It's not an option. You've got 35 kids in front of you that you've got to talk to right now.
Totally.
But it's different getting up on stage, right?
I think the main difference is the content of human, which is, this like organically evolved thing that's happened. The content, it's about stories that have happened to me. And I don't even want to say it's about me, although it kind of is, but it's about experiences that I've had and me telling those experiences and trying to bring other people into those experiences, right? Whereas I can happily talk, if I'm organising group shots at a wedding and I have a room of 50 people who I need to be militant with and get in the right place and not just talk to, but talk to in a way that's really instructive and respectful and confident, no issue whatsoever. Like if there's a purpose to me doing it, I have no issue whatsoever.
Well, in an event situation, you do that with bridal
the whole time.
Group photos every day of the week.
Exactly. So that's simple for me. Like I have no issue with confidence doing that because I have a role to play, and that role is something that others want me to achieve, right? But I think the difference is when it comes to talking about things that you've lived, and that's the tricky bit. So yeah, look, I now know that I can do that. But that's.
Are you going to run with it?
Well, it's happening again.
Yeah.
We know. I'm open. That's the truth of it. Like it seems that, and again, only because of the feedback that I've got and what's kind of just happened naturally. Like it seems that some of these stories are of interest. There was even somebody there who is essentially a public speaker agent, and he was there and he made some notes. He said, look, all of these stories really have like messages that can be taken into different scenarios.
Every event planner in the world pretending to be? Oh yeah, I get loads of public speaking work. I can get you.
There's an actual real one.
Right, real life,
with a real company.
Real life, right.
But apparently a lot of the messages that came out of these experiences are transferable to, let's say, a business setting or other settings.
So that was where I was going with it. Is I found it massively motivational. Like, whether you framed it so or not, it is a story of trouble and strife and woe and bashing your head against a brick wall and being ultimately determined to achieve a result, achieving that result, and then you talk about the non-existent ladder, taking the next step in the process to the next level, if you like.
Yeah.
I was sitting there thinking, if I was a 16-year-old photographer, you've mapped my journey. I mean, I'd have been like, right, I'm going down to the newspapers the next day and I'm going to run your scam and see if it works. It's not a scam. I'm using that word. I'm trying to make it interesting so that, you know.
It sounded very lockstep.
It worked though, right?
Yeah, 100%. Made me seem much cooler for a scam.
And from a business perspective, it I don't know. It showed me the benefit and power of persistence in that respect. Again, trying to not talk about the content of it. Yeah. But I mean, I read it, I saw it, and I thought any set of young employees anywhere could listen to that and understand the underlying message of determination versus achievement versus persistence.
It's really interesting. You know, nothing was framed in any particular way, apart from I wanted a nice mix of experiences that were difficult and experiences that were joyous. That was kind of it. Apart from that, it was really a case of me looking back over 15, 20 years and saying, what are the main 10 things that stand out as shaping the path? And that's really interesting. Like, even if people aren't planning on going and sharing this on stage to 250 people, it's a really interesting thing to do in your own mind, to go through that journey and say, right, what are the moments that brought me where I am? Whether I don't like where I am or whether I do or whatever, it's irrelevant. But what are those moments? Is it setting up that business? Is it when you had kids? Is it that degree instead of that degree? Whatever it might be. So there was no real framing of it in that sense. But yeah, lots of people have got in touch since saying things like, I love painting as a hobby, and I for some reason I've not painted for 10 years, and the day after your talk went straight out and bought myself a paint set, and you know, these kind of things. Or there were a few young photographers there who hopefully took a bit from it. But it's really, it's all very personal.
How did you commit to... I got loads of stories. I've done some really cool stuff for a long period of time, and if I probably thought about it hard enough, I'm sure I could come up with a talk, a one-man show,
an evening with,
and I have no doubt that some of it would be interesting to other people, but there's a lot there. Like, you must have had to have spent some serious time putting it together. Like, how long did it take? How far off are you off a book? Like, it's got to be there.
Could happen.
It's got to be done already.
Yeah, it could. Well, I mean, how long does it take? So when I was going to cancel it originally, the one before that, I then spent about 10 hours putting something together on PowerPoint, and that was the bare bones of it. That's more or less it. I mean, luckily everything's perfectly chronicled, so I can find any picture that you saw in it in 10 seconds. So that's easy. And actually telling the stories is easy because I remember them. So
well, the pictures help, right? Like, as a memory jog, it puts you back 100%, where you were when you 100%. Took it.
So for me, really, it was a case of... and actually, since I said yes to that first one, I've been sharing a bit more about the stories behind the pictures, behind the shot, online. And for me, it was just really a case of looking at that and saying, okay, if I do 20 of these, then my talk's done and I don't need to think about it.
Presumably, you've got loads more stories. We spoke almost straight after, and we talked about how much of it would stay and how much of it would drop into the next one.
Yeah.
How many are there?
There's a lot. I mean, I think when you're doing... And it's no secret because it's on the website and whatever, like press photography or editorial things. You know, you're shooting 3 or 4 commissions every day. So, you know, times that by 5 years and you've got your 2,000 or more photography commissions or whatever it might be.
I've just realised you've shared one of the stories on social media since. Sitting in the egg cups.
Shared a picture. I'm not going to go into the story.
Oh, did I only contextualise it because I'd seen the pictures?
I think so.
All right. Okay.
So they're out there.
Yeah.
But not the ins and outs.
You're right. Okay. It's a great story.
so there's a lot more there. And I think when you do press stuff, 3 or 4 commissions a day, and that's also why I'm like so thankful for that background that I had, because it's crazy stuff, and it's so varied between one and the other. And you're not shooting once a week, right? You're shooting from, you know, the opening of something in the morning to a property supplement in the afternoon to a royal thing in the late afternoon to a riot in the evening, and then you're up the next morning to do students up all night at Oxford University, and then the next, it's just on and on and on with like the most varied subject matter, things that people don't even realise goes into newspapers.
Yeah, someone's got to take that picture.
Right, and that's mad.
Do you think that's less so now? Presumably with camera phones and whatnot. There
think
must
it's
be a
less
lot of... some of those stories you talked about where you were sent out to people and you're like, why am I here?
Yeah.
Presumably the paper now just says, you got a phone? Just take a selfie for me.
I don't know. There's still a lot of commission photography.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, less staff photographers, but more commission. So I'm not sure. I think where they're using probably a lot more phone footage is action. You know, if there's a stabbing,
Well, because someone's on the scene,
someone's there, and that's it. Exactly. So I think that.
But they make the front
things.
pages now.
Yeah,
Phone,
they're good enough.
phones, right?
They're good enough. You know, they have a pixel count that's high enough. And
That's the
newspapers are
same
printed-
as your, you know, but for the sensor, it's ultimately got the same kit in it.
Yeah, and newspapers are printed terribly anyway. So
That's true.
Who cares?
That's also true.
Kind of. So yeah, you know, there's a lot more experience there. But really, also, it's just a case of like, if I'm going to share these things, like it can't be. I can't be making up the numbers. You know, it needs to be authentic. It needs to be the things that really did change my thinking or the course of my life, for want of a better word. So as much as there's loads of incidental stories of meeting this celeb or meeting that royal or whatever, I wouldn't want to put them in for the sake of it.
You tell it well, though.
Maybe.
Like that's got to be a part of it, because you tell the story well. You've got the pictures. Certainly, that's half the work of painting it.
Yeah.
But you set them up well. There's some proper chuckle moments in it where you're like, that was clever.
In fact, my favourite piece of feedback from the entire thing was I saw somebody last week, and they said, "We came to your talk. Definitely didn't think you were funny."
Oh.
As in before.
Oh, right, okay. God, that was terrible for after.
Yeah. Had no idea. Just thought you weren't funny. Like, pleasantly surprised.
You got anything else you want to talk about? You got anything you want to plug aside from Human 2? Is it called Human 2?
Just called Human.
Human.
Yeah.
Human again.
Human again. Still human.
Yeah, still human. Still. Oh, wait, I wanted to talk about your ad. The ad you did for Human / the intro that you played.
Yeah.
At the thing.
Yeah.
You made that?
As in the trailer before January 14th.
Set to Human.
No, that was made for me.
Oh, was it?
By the
Shouts
lovely
out.
folk at Gavsy Media.
Oh, right, okay. Shout out to Gavin. Yeah. Do you not want to let people know that you're available for weddings, bar mitzvahs? Look, thanks. We have to wrap this up in front of the cameras. I'm sure this will continue after. But I was really pleased to get you in, and I didn't think you were going to come. And I thought after the show, he's going to be too famous. He's not going to come in.
I mean, I had a moment of tiredness mid-afternoon.
Oh, I know.
Today,
That was the call. I know. I wasn't going to let it happen.
Push on. It's okay. No, thanks for having me. And,
thank you.
You did tell me about this at its early
beginning of December.
Stages.
You knew.
And it's been really exciting
what
to
do you
see
think?
how it's. I think
you can tell the people.
Incredible. I mean, you know what? I've seen it. I said to you as I walked in. I've seen it on screen, and I've seen some of the things that have gone out from here already. And it looks great. But to actually walk in here and see it, I think it's phenomenal. You've done an amazing job. Amazing. And I hope it gets used by all and
well, it's
sundry
moving
very
soon.
regularly. It's moving.
In fact, by the time people are watching this, it'll already have moved. But it's going to a permanent location, because although me and you can have this chat now, during the day, helicopters and aeroplanes make it quite difficult to record.
That's very true. That's very true.
Thank you.
Well, good luck with the house move.
Thank you. And we'll put some links down there. I've got to get better, apparently, at going links down there or link in bio. Which apparently is the thing we're going to do.
Is that
Bio's up there, comments down there. But in the description, I'll put a link to buy Human tickets and a link to that trailer that people should definitely watch.
Thank you. And I still do photography, everybody.
Yes, don't forget. Thank you.